The boardroom on the 28th floor of Umasai Group was cloaked in silence, illuminated by the cold light streaming through the glass ceiling. At the head of the table, Nana Umasai, the chairwoman, leaning on her cane with eyes as sharp as X-rays, stood up. "Caden," she said, "you are the sole heir. But a man without a family cannot lead this legacy." Caden sat still in his black suit, his eyes fixed on the portrait of his mother, the late CEO Naomi Umasai, hanging on the wall. "I've steered the company through 3 crises. What does marriage have to do with that?" Vincent, his cousin standing in the back, smirked. "Shareholders don't invest in lonely men, dear cousin. They invest in image, in stability." Nana didn't retract her words. "You have 30 days. If by the next quarterly meeting you're still unmarried, your right to lead will be reconsidered. And Vincent is already married." Caden said nothing. He stood up, gave a slight nod, and left the room. Outside, the rain had started. The pressure from his family, and his mother's legacy, was suffocating. That evening, in his penthouse, Caden stared at the TV screen, where images of Vincent and his newlywed wife flooded social media. A lavish wedding, reporters swarming, shareholders reposting the pictures. It was all a clear message. You are losing. Peter, his personal lawyer and his mother's longtime friend, called. There's a way out, a temporary marriage, a contract. Sign it within 30 days, annul it after the shareholder meeting. Caden ended the call without replying. The next morning, he walked through Jamestown Market, where the poor made their living by the train tracks. A girl was being chased away for setting up her stall too close to the road. Her clothes were worn, but her eyes burned like someone who had once lit a fire in her soul. Caden stood and watched. As she was being scolded, she lifted her chin and said, "I'm not begging. I'm selling scarves. If you need one, buy it." As she started to walk away, he called out, "What's your name?" "Amira. I need you to pretend to be my wife. For 30 days. You'll be well paid." She looked at him like he was insane. "I'm not for sale. I need a wife under a fake marriage contract, but real enough that people will believe it." A moment of silence passed. Then she said, "Fine. But don't expect me to fall in love with you." Caden gave a faint smile. "Good. I don't believe in love anyway." Salon Golden Lily smelled of lavender and power. The ladies who frequented this place were used to having hems fixed with a mere nod. But today, they glanced at the girl in the worn-out sneakers and faded t-shirt sitting at the center like she was an anomaly. Amira sat stiffly, every part of her body instinctively ready to flee. But Caden said just one thing, "Chin up. This is where they'll learn your name." 3 hours later, her dusty curls had become silky waves pinned with jade hairpins. Her sun-kissed skin was treated with luxury creams. Amira stared at herself in the mirror, barely recognizing her reflection. "I'm afraid I won't be able to keep up this look for long," she whispered. Caden glanced at the mirror and replied softly, "I don't need you to look like anyone else. I just need them to believe you're second to none." The first gown she wore was wine red, form-fitting but not flashy, elegant without erasing her past. When she stepped out, Caden froze for a moment. He said nothing, but there was a strange light in his eyes. That evening, Amira walked into the Umasai estate, a mansion where every wall was draped in silk and chandeliers hung like comets from the ceiling. She slowed her breath, secretly clutching the edge of her dress. This was not her world. Caden, on the other hand, walked as if the floor had been born beneath his feet. He introduced her to the butler, the gardener, and even the chef with a single sentence. "This is my fiancée. Treat her as you would treat me." Amira nearly choked when she heard the word, fiancé. She leaned toward him and whispered, "You're laying it on a bit thick. That's the point." The next morning, they, coincidentally, appeared together at a charity art gala. Cameras flashed non-stop. Amira smiled just enough, answered with flawless British accented English. When a socialite asked where she studied, she replied, "Ghana Business School, Management Department." No one questioned it. In fact, they praised her. Caden leaned close, whispering, "You really went to school there?" She nodded slightly. "1 year. Then my mother died. Money ran out. The streets took over from there." He said nothing, but something in his eyes softened. That night, they were no longer strangers, but not quite anything else either. Amira stood by the living room window, looking at the distant city lights. "I used to dream of living in a place like this," she said. "And now you are." "Not in a real way." Caden was silent. But deep inside, a question had started to echo. What does real even mean? 3 days after their public appearance, Amira had become the talk of Yumasai Group. Employees whispered about the beauty of the mysterious fiancé, while shareholders spoke more about her calm demeanor and the way she spoke, like someone with an MBA. During a strategic meeting, Amira was invited to sit in, as an observer only. But when a director presented a vague budget report, she unexpectedly spoke up. "The PR consulting expense from last month has no invoice attached. If the auditors get involved, that line item could pose a reputational risk." The room fell silent. Caden looked at her, surprised, but also proud. After the meeting, in the elevator with just the two of them, he said, "You just made one of our top 3 shareholders rethink their position." "You could have told me to stay quiet," she replied. "I don't want you to stay quiet. I want you to keep doing exactly that." Amira gave a small smile. "I thought I was just acting." Caden looked at her for a long moment. "And I'm not sure I'm acting anymore." That evening, they had dinner in the backyard of the estate. A simple meal Amira had cooked herself: cassava leaf soup, steamed fish with ginger, and plain rice. Caden took a bite of fish, then winced. "Too spicy?" Amira asked. "No. It's just too good. It's been a while since I had something that felt this real." She laughed, truly laughed, for the first time since she arrived. Then he said, not looking at her, "You know, my mother used to cook this dish. Every time she did, it meant something important was about to happen." Amira looked up. "And tonight, I think, I'm about to confess something." She stared at him. He was quiet for a few seconds, then said, "I like you." Not dramatic, not rushed, just a gentle truth, heavy with meaning. Amira didn't respond right away, but she poured more tea, her hand slightly trembling. Somehow she knew, if she answered now, then none of this would be pretend anymore. That night, she stepped onto the balcony of her room. Below, she saw Caden walking alone in the garden, hands in his pockets, head slightly bowed. He didn't look up, but she knew, if she called his name, he would. But she didn't, because she, too, wasn't ready to believe that these feelings were real. Early in the morning, inside Caden's office, Peter, the family lawyer, placed a thick file on the desk. "You need to see this." Caden opened it. Photographs, faded birth certificates, old addresses. And in the center, a single photo, a little girl standing in front of a burnt-down house, clutching a woman in a nurse's uniform. "This is Amira?" Peter nodded. Real name, Amira Owusu. Only daughter of Samuel Owusu, the man who once sued the Yumasai family over a land dispute in East Ridge. That case was rigged. He lost everything. Her mother died not long after. Caden sat still. You're saying the woman I'm about to marry once had every reason to hate my entire family? She's never said a word about it. But the past rarely stays buried for long. That night, when Amira returned to the estate, she found Caden waiting in the living room. The file was already opened on the table. "You found it," she said softly. "You knew I'd investigate?" "No. But I knew this would come, sooner or later." "Why did you come here?" His voice was firm now. "For money. Revenge. To reclaim what my family took." Her fingers clenched around the strap of her bag. "I came because of a crazy offer. I stayed because of things I can't explain." "Then why didn't you tell me the truth from the beginning?" Amira lifted her head. Her eyes were red. "Because I was afraid that once you knew who I was, everything you saw in me would become just a reflection of the past. Of hate. Not who I really am." Caden turned away, gripping the back of a chair. "Not angry. Just tired. I don't know what to believe anymore." Amira was quiet. Then she said, "Then I'll go. I won't wait for the shareholder meeting. I won't take the final payment. Just so you know, I didn't stay for anything but you." She left that night. Caden didn't stop her. The mansion fell silent. Every room was lit, except hers. Caden sat at the foot of the staircase, holding the old photograph. The little girl's face, the fierce, unbroken gaze, matched the eyes of the woman who had turned his world upside down. "I should have asked what you went through, not who you used to be," he whispered. 3 days passed. No one knew where Amira had gone. Caden searched everywhere: her old apartment, the street market, the small church she once mentioned. Nothing. But he knew, if there was even the slightest chance of forgiveness, it had to come from him first. He couldn't wait behind. He had to step forward. Wednesday morning, light rain fell over Accra. Caden drove alone, leaving the city behind. No driver, no security detail. Just him, and the ring still sitting quietly in his pocket. He followed the red dirt road south toward Cape Coast, where his mother once took him to volunteer. At a small coastal convent, he found Amira. She was wiping down a wooden table in the dining hall, her hair tied back neatly, no makeup, dressed in a plain brown tunic. When she saw him, her hand paused. Her eyes didn't show surprise, almost as if she had been waiting for this moment. "I thought you'd come," she said calmly. "Because I couldn't stand the thought of you disappearing from my life," Caden replied. They stood in silence for a moment. Finally, Amira asked, "Did you come to blame me, or to forgive me?" Caden shook his head. "I came to apologize for letting fear blind my heart. I saw the truth in you, but I chose to doubt you." She turned away, finishing the last corner of the table. "I thought I could keep everything at a distance. My name, my past, my emotions," she said quietly. "But some things, no matter how tightly you hide them, find their way out anyway." "I don't care what your name is anymore, Amira," Caden said. "All I know is, if I let you go again, nothing in my life would be real." She looked up. "Do you truly know who I am now? Amira Owusu, daughter of a man who lost everything to my family, but also the only person who's ever made me feel like I have a real home." Her eyes welled with tears. For the first time, there was no distance between them. No roles, no contracts, only two people, fractured, but finding healing in each other. Caden stepped forward and took out the ring. It was no longer a prop. It was a choice. "Let's start over," he said. "Not for shareholders. Not for my mother. Not for anyone else. Just for us." Amira looked at him, and very softly nodded. 3 days later, they returned to the city, hand in hand. The boardroom froze when Caden stood and announced, "I didn't marry because of a company bylaw. I married the woman who deserves to stand beside me, not just in this company, but in life." Vincent objected, loudly, but no one listened anymore, because the woman once dismissed as a fake wife was now officially appointed as Yumasai Group's new financial advisor. That evening, the lights were still on in Caden's office. He was signing paperwork when Amira walked in, placing a cup of tea beside him. "Is it hard," she teased, "being married to someone with an education?" "The hardest part," he said, pulling her gently toward him, "was pretending I hadn't loved you all along." They sat together on the rooftop, side by side, drafting the guest list, picking the venue, and dreaming about things that once felt too luxurious to imagine. Caden wanted a seaside wedding, intimate, no extravagance. "I don't need to prove anything to the world," he said. "I just want a ceremony real enough for you to feel safe." Amira hoped to keep a few Ghanaian traditions, Kent-trimmed bridal lace and a welcoming dance for the elders. "We get to turn a wrong beginning into a right ending," she whispered, resting her head on his shoulder. Caden smiled gently. "No, this isn't the ending. It's just the most beautiful chapter, waiting to be written." At sunset, Adafoa Beach glowed in honeyed light. The waves lapped gently, like nature's quiet applause for something sacred about to unfold. The wedding of Caden Yumasai and Amira Owusu wasn't grand, nor crowded with hollow guests. Only close family, trusted colleagues, and a soft acoustic band playing a love song in ancient Ga. Amira walked barefoot on a petal-strewn sand aisle, dressed in an elegant white silk gown. Her hair was braided neatly, adorned with a silver pin gifted by Nana Yumasai herself. Caden stood beneath an arch of coconut palms, his eyes unable to hide the emotion. "You look like an apology life finally made to me. After everything," he whispered as she reached him. Amira smiled, taking his hand. "And you look like a beginning I never thought I deserved, but always hoped for." The ceremony was simple, yet deeply heartfelt. When the minister asked Caden, "Do you promise to love and honor her, not only in her strength, but in her breaking, not out of duty, but by choice?" Caden replied, "I was once lost, but she helped me find my way home. I do." Amira met his eyes, steady and full of truth. "You were the final light when the rest of my world went dark." "I do, with no conditions." Vincent left the celebration early, silent. But before he stepped away, he paused in front of Amira, muttering dryly, "You won." Amira simply smiled. "I didn't win anything. I just chose right." That night, under a sky of stars, Caden and Amira stood at the edge of the shore, shoes off, toes buried in the wet sand. The waves were cool against their feet. The wind carried the scent of salt, and of a future. A love that began with a lie, ended in a promise. A girl who once had nowhere to sleep, now held the heart of the heir to an empire. And a man who once doubted love, now knew. Some things can never be written into contracts, only lived, only felt. If this journey moved you, from street corners to boardrooms, from a contract to a covenant, don't forget to hit like and share this story to inspire someone who might be walking through their own turning point. And subscribe to our channel to discover more emotional, powerful, and soul-stirring tales like this one. Your support helps us continue telling real stories that speak to the heart.